Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Everything you're about to hear is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Allegations remain unproven until a verdict is reached. Britney Spears didn't just walk into a Manhattan courtroom, she detonated it. One minute the gallery was murmuring about wire fraud spreadsheets. The next, every head snapped toward the double doors as the most scrutinized voice of the 2000s slipped inside. Chin-high eyes, fixed forward. Journalists later called it a cameo. They were wrong. Cameos don't reorder a narrative. They don't make billionaires sweat through bespoke suits. By the time Britney sat, folded her hands and whispered, "I'm done being quiet." The trial of Sean Diddy Combs had morphed from a money laundering case into a referendum on how pop culture manufactures, monetizes, and muzzles its icons. For years, legal analysts insisted the Combs indictment was too technical to ignite mainstream outrage. But a single witness rewrote that forecast in 90 seconds. Hashtags cannibalized front-page headlines. Cable networks cut to live feeds. Suddenly, a courtroom built for spreadsheets became ground zero for a cultural exorcism. Even the stenographers sworn to impartiality. Later admitted her hands shook while transcribing the first 2 minutes of testimony. But to understand why 12 jurors suddenly leaned in, as though gravity had shifted, you have to rewind 18 years to a champagne flute in a Las Vegas nightclub in ordinary glass that may have been the first domino in a billion-dollar cascade. The doors clicked shut behind her, and the room inhaled as one. Prosecutors had teased a mystery witness. But nobody expected the princess of TRL to materialize in court whites in a courtroom ponytail. Diddy's legal team stiffened. The mogul himself turned a shade paler than the marble columns. Britney never glanced his way. She adjusted the mic with trembling fingers, steadying her breath as if she'd practiced this moment in the mirror for years. "I was told silence would save me," she began, voice low but lethal. It never did. That opening line landed like a depth charge, but what followed was worse for the defense. A chronological promise. Britney announced she would walk the jury through every time they swapped truth for profit, inviting the panel to treat her life as a forensic timeline rather than a tabloid roller coaster. The tactic worked. The prosecution's narrative now had a human metronome, and every tick invited jurors to trace cause and effect back to the man at the defense table. A reporter typed so fast his keys sounded like hail. A juror pressed 2 fingertips to her temple, bracing for impact. And impact arrived. Britney pointed at Combs and said the chain of events that caged her life began with his party the night before the 2007 VMAs. The gallery rippled, half gasp, half sotto voce disbelief. The judge leaned forward. September 8, 2007. Pure nightclub inside Caesar's Palace pulsed at 128 beats per minute. Cassie celebrated her 21st. Cameras flashed. Diddy worked the crowd like a benevolent king distributing laughter. Lou Taylor, then an obscure business manager, hovered in a corner. Robin Greenhill tracked every interaction, clipboard in hand. Britney arrived determined to sip once and slip out. She still believed the next night's VMAs would cement her comeback. Diddy intercepted her with a grin, raised a flute of champagne, and assured, "Just one, you'll be fine." She remembered the flute tipping toward her lips, the taste of citrus bubbles. And then the night fell into jump cuts. Disjointed laughter. Someone whispering, "She's done." A dizzy spiral of ceiling lights. Black. In court, forensics experts testified the symptoms she described: blurred vision, sudden fatigue, time loss, match common date, rape, drug profiles. No talk screen exists, but the implication ignited juror outrage. Pure security logs, subpoenaed years later, list an unexplained 10-minute camera outage that aligns exactly with Britney's blackout. When the blackout lifted, dawn glared through hotel curtains. Her limbs felt sandbagged, her mind fogged beyond anything alcohol ever wrought. She dialed management. They insisted she powered through. The world is watching Brit. In that moment, a team of handlers converted her confusion into a data point. Proof of instability, Exhibit A. Hours later, the MTV stage lights flared. Britney shuffled into a glittered top and shorts she'd never approved. The beat drops. She missed the first mark, then the second. Millions of viewers saw a star imploding live. Memes spawned before the final chorus. In the crowd, Diddy leaned back, unfazed. Cameras caught the faint curl of satisfaction. Within 24 hours, tabloids screamed breakdown. Late-night hosts carved punchlines. And, behind closed doors, phone lines buzzed. Lou Taylor phoned Britney's father. Papers were drafted. Words like conservatorship and psychiatric evaluation leaped from legal pads onto fax machines. Defense counsel argued the VMAs were simply a bad performance compounded by nerves. But prosecutors introduced backstage footage showing Britney repeatedly asking for medical help and being waved on stage by management. The clip ends with a handler muttering, "We only need 3 minutes." 3 minutes of global humiliation proved more valuable than any triumphant comeback. Britney told the jury she'd been humiliated and paraded as unstable to greenlight a takeover of her life. The meltdown, she insisted, was engineered to justify a cage. In the weeks after the VMA's signatures shifted quicker than headlines, power of attorney documents appeared bearing Britney's scrawl signatures she swears were coaxed under duress. Lou Taylor presented herself as savior, but every wellness check funneled the singer closer to legal captivity. Emails later subpoenaed showed Taylor contacting Diddy's office with subject lines like, "Asset shielding urgent." "They rehearsed my prison before I knew the script," Britney testified. Her estate worth 9 figures flowed into a constellation of LLCs managed by TriStar, where Robin Greenhill rubber-stamped cash transfers labeled consulting. Nothing about the setup looked temporary. Everything about it looked profitable. Financial forensic slides projected in court revealed TriStar earned more from Britney between 2008 and 2014 than from its next 3 highest-grossing clients combined. One slide highlighted a footnote: a quarterly strategic partnership retainer. Paid by a Combs-controlled entity the same month Britney's visitation rights were suspended, the coincidence drew audible groans from the jury box. Once the conservatorship locked, oversight morphed into omnipresence. Black box security installed cameras for safety that never blinked. iCloud accounts were mirrored so every text to sons, doctors, even secret diary apps fed back to handlers. If she Googled her own name too often, the iPad froze. Medication schedules arrived, color-coded and non-negotiable. One drug blurred short-term memory so thoroughly she forgot entire weekends. Whistleblower Alex Vluva, former TriStar tech, told Britney her bedroom feed was viewable on an office monitor, labeled simply client for. She confronted her court-appointed lawyer only to be told stressed pop stars misinterpret safeguards. And still, somewhere in the background, Diddy received briefing calls. The whistleblower also produced a screenshot admitted into evidence showing a split-screen display, Britney sleeping. Another window tracking real-time bank balances. The juxtaposition became an instant symbol online, her unconscious face beside numbers spinning like an odometer of exploitation. "They recorded my downfall and called it protection," she told the jury, each syllable landing like a gavel strike. The prosecution unveiled an email chain referencing insurance reels, raw footage locked in an encrypted archive. One clip allegedly shows nightclub security leading a disoriented Britney through a staff corridor. Another documents rehearsal floor tears before the VMA telecast. Not deleted, not forgotten, but warehoused as leverage. According to internal notes, similar tapes existed for at least 10 artists. Currency in an under-the-table economy where silence is purchased with fear. "They didn't just film me," Britney said. "They kept me." Cybersecurity analysts testified the archive sat on a server leased by a Luxembourg shell company. Its monthly hosting fee auto-paid from an account tied Toyette, a Ghent Combs Enterprises. The detail demolished the defense's claim that Diddy had no knowledge of the footage. Anchoring the tapes directly to his financial pipeline, jurors shifted, the weight of unseen images pressing the room. If these drives surfaced, careers could crater, plea deals could sprout overnight, and all roads, prosecutors argued, ran back to the Courtroom empire, shell companies moving hush money, favor trades, and, allegedly, trafficking payouts. Forensic accountants traced $47 million exiting Britney's estate during her conservatorship. Much landed in TriStar-administered vehicles with sister accounts linked to Combs Enterprises advisors. One memo flagged a six-figure consulting fee paid the same week a key witness. In Diddy's separate civil suit withdrew statements. Another highlighted Robin Greenhill approving monthly stipends to a Las Vegas promoter now cited in an FBI affidavit about party sourcing. Follow the money, prosecutors intoned, and you'll find the motive. Britney followed with plain language. They broke me because breaking me paid better than managing me. An expert witness from the Treasury Department noted that the shell lattice mirrored techniques once employed by Eastern European oligarchs, layering jurisdictions to blur accountability. The comparison jolted jurors. This wasn't mere celebrity mismanagement. It resembled a multinational fraud blueprint. From her purse, Britney produced a creased 2009 note. Ink smudged, edges frayed, her 27-year-old self begging Diddy to explain why he toasted her ruin. She read it aloud, voice steady, eyes locked on the defendant. You knew I was being set up and you smiled. Not black and white evidence, perhaps, but lightning in a bottle for public opinion. The courtroom remained so still, one could hear fluorescent lights hum. Britney folded the letter, placed it back in her pocket, and said, "I'm not crazy. I was caged." In that instant, the moral balance of the trial tilted. Prosecutors now had a living emblem of alleged industry abuse. Defense attorneys faced a witness no jury wanted to dismiss as delusional. Social media mined the letter for hours, weighing every pen stroke like Talmudic scholars. Linguists on morning shows argued its plain language undercut any notion Britney was too unstable to understand her circumstances, further poisoning the defense's primary talking point. Hours later, court adjourned. Reporters spilled onto Worth Street, phoning editors with the phrase "trial of the decade revised." Social feeds erupted. Yet the judge reminded everyone the only verdict that matters is the one jurors will write. So here's where we stand. A pop icon claims her famed breakdown was a manufactured pretext for financial bondage. A hip-hop titan faces not just fraud counts, but cultural prosecution for weaponizing influence. Hard drives of insurance reels lurk in unknown vaults, potential time bombs for half the industry. Legal scholars predict that verdict decide the testimony will spawn new legislation targeting fiduciary abuse in entertainment. One senator has already tweeted support for a Britney bill aimed at safeguarding adult performers from predatory conservatorships. Proof that cultural aftershocks are racing the jury toward history's finish line. If someone as visible, profitable, and beloved as Britney Spears can be cornered by champagne, paperwork, and cameras, what shields any artist or any ordinary person from a well-funded ghost room machine? Maybe the footage surfaces, maybe it vanishes. Maybe Combs walks, maybe he doesn't. But the day pop royalty hijacked a federal trial, the public learned one uncomfortable truth. Influence isn't always chart positions or streaming numbers. Sometimes influence is whatever you can make disappear and whoever you can afford to keep quiet. The tapes may be hidden, the verdict unwritten, but the silence that once cloaked this story is gone for good. The question is, what or who surfaces next? Drop your verdict in the comments, smash the like button if transparency still matters. And subscribe for the next chapter, because the names in that folder didn't end with one man, and the final reel is still rolling. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay critical, and remember, when power meets secrecy, someone always pays the tab. Just make sure it isn't you.